Hello, David here at merchantaccounts.ca with another episode of the Vlogcast. Today we're going to be having a really interesting conversation because we're going to be focusing on the human part of business. People think of e-commerce as technology, obviously it is, but it's not run by robots, it's run by humans. And we're going to talk about something that I'm calling the journey, which is our bumpy path that we take in our lives as we stumble, sometimes we fall, but hopefully we get up. We dust ourselves off, and it's those scrapes that teach us the most in business and in life. And I want to talk to interesting people about their journey and the things they've learned along the way. Today I'm talking to Justin Loncaric, who's a realtor based in Canada and also a serial entrepreneur with a really interesting story. Justin, like all of us, has seen his successes and failures, and I'm certain we're going to glean some really interesting insight that can be applied to any business. Justin, thanks for joining today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate the time.
Wonderful. So I know that you are a realtor. In fact, you come from a family of realtors. Maybe just to tell our viewers, why don't you just tell people about like your background and kind of your career as a realtor there?
So I tell everybody that I've been doing real estate for 41 years. And the reason why I say that is because my parents have been doing it since before I was born. My mom worked for A.E. LePage and Century 21 way back in the day. And ultimately, I ended up working for her team when I became a realtor 16 years ago. So before that, I even had a grandmother that sold real estate in Montreal and Florida. So it's been a very interesting journey through watching them and actually having a life that was pretty amazing because of it. And that's one thing that I want to stress to people. It's like, I really had an amazing life growing up, but the journey wasn't just all roses and, kind of rainbows over that time when I actually ended up becoming a realtor, because I had to go through struggles to build my own business as well. So it's been an interesting journey, but certainly one that has been well worth the price of admission for me, for sure.
That's interesting. Growing up in generations of realtors, was there an expectation that you would go kind of in? Because a realtor, to me, and I'm not a realtor, but there's a sales element to that. There's obviously a human, like a psychology, because especially when you're younger and you're buying your first house, it's like the most intimidating thing ever. Were you kind of expected to do that, or were you free to do whatever you wanted to do?
I think in my head, I just wanted to avoid it at all costs. And so I didn't want to be a realtor. So I fought it for a long, long time. Eventually, it kind of came to a point where I knew that I needed to do something. I had met a woman who eventually became my wife, and I needed to have a career in order to support a life with a wife, and so on and so forth. And so I made a decision at some point that I had to become a realtor, but it wasn't an easy one, but it was well worth it.
That's interesting. But you're not just a realtor. I've already said you are quite an entrepreneur. You have lots of projects, lots of irons in the fire. And what I really want to talk about, Justin, is it's like like I said, the journey, the path. So the realtor, was that your first full-time gig? Is that that's what you've been doing forever? But when did you step away from being a realtor or just a realtor to other projects, tinkering with other things?
I've been tinkering with other things for an entire lifetime. So I think being in a realtor family, that these people don't work 9 to 5. You understand that. I mean, I had a mom that was late for every family gathering, and in my entire baseball career, which spanned into the United States, she came to maybe 7 of my baseball games, and I had thousands of them. Now, I'm not complaining about that because I had a life that allowed for that, and that allowed for the best equipment and all the crazy things that came along with it, and trips to Hawaii and whatever. But I guess what I'm saying is I understood that 9 to 5 wasn't really going to be my jam at some point. Mm-hmm. When I was 17, 18 years old, we had a business where we were putting up Christmas lights for people. And we did that locally in our town, got a big newspaper article written about us, my friend and I, and we were the first company to do it in Burlington. The following year, 7 landscaping companies picked up the idea and started doing it.
Wait, how old were you?
Like 18, 17,
okay.
Something like that. Yeah. And we made over the course of 4 weeks, we must have made $7,000 for us. That was huge. And it was all cash because we were just going out and showing up at people's houses and taking cash.
That's interesting.
That's how that kind of sparked, right? And I had a friend who had parents who were silk screeners, which is their own business, and I worked in that company and understood the value of running your own business out of that. My parents showed me the value of it. So like going through it, it wasn't just like, oh, I'm a realtor and now I'm going to do other things. It's always been kind of on the back of my mind. When I was 20, I joined Amway. So
you know what? Okay, I love that because Amway, Quickstar, all of those multi-level marketing things. I've had people do those over the years, and you kind of know they're not going to make a zillion. Well, you kind of. Let me just qualify my language on the podcast. I don't think they're going to make $1 million doing that, but they're going to learn really valuable lessons. It's like, but they've sold you on this belief and you can make money. Like, take the concepts that they're using to convince you to do these things. Right. There's a lot to learn there.
But take the concept of passive income and extrapolate that into business, because the reality of life is such that if you work a 9 to 5, you're lining other people's pockets with the work that you do. You're making money for yourself, but when you leave that job and you stop that job, like you're literally, I go home at 5 o'clock, you stop making money. Right. But the idea of passive income, which is so heavily built into the Amway model and any other multi-level model. And I'm not saying that it's the way to go. I mean, I've never really made anything of Amway, but the lessons that I learned and took from that have stuck with me from day one. Right.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Now take that to real estate and the idea that I know a guy in our town that makes $6 million a year selling real estate. He's got a team of 30 people that work for him. And I know for a fact that he's complaining constantly that he never sees his family and he's stressed out and all these other things.
Oh, meanwhile, so it never occurred to me, because even when you're a big earner, you're still on a treadmill. It's just a really glamorous treadmill.
It's a glamorous treadmill, but it's all about how you position yourself on that treadmill, right? Because one thing I found in real estate is people tend to have a really hard time leveraging and allowing someone else to do stuff. Right. I've never had that problem because I feel like I jokingly say I'm like eternally lazy. So I'm ready to hand off stuff like as soon as possible. But I hand it off to the right people. I don't just hand it off lightly. Right. So the idea behind the building a business properly, and no slight on that guy because he's making $6 million a year, or his team is making $6 million a year. I mean, he's doing great for himself and he enjoys the moments that he enjoys. But I just don't want to not ever be there. Like, I know that my mom wasn't there for my childhood and for my baseball games. My kids play rep hockey. We travel all over the place. I've been in Florida, Pittsburgh, Michigan, all over the place for my kids' hockey. I've not missed almost a single game. And the only time I generally have is because I'm at my other kids' game, because I have 2 of them and I have to kind of split my time.
That's a pretty good accomplishment.
For me, that's success. And I think everybody delineates success at different levels. $6 million is great, and I'd love to get that to that point one day. But if that's at the expense of my family time, that's not success to me, right? So I'm trying to do everything I can to build my business differently, using passive levels of income to be able to kind of build out different opportunities outside of real estate as well. And I'm not just talking about investing. There's other things that you can do. People don't realize how powerful it is to connect human beings together. I think there's a big element there. And having a list of people, just people you know, is incredibly valuable. That's a major asset for you.
You're talking about the concepts of building a network and leveraging that network, I think.
100%. Yeah. So I'll give you an example of that if you want to hear. So I recently went on a weight loss journey, and the guy that was providing me, basically I said to this guy, I need to lose weight. And we talked to his nutritionist, and he's really good. And he said, okay, well, I've got a program where I can provide you the food. So all you need to do is put it in the microwave, heat it up, and eat it. You don't have to cook it. You don't have to prepare nothing. And to me, that is supremely important because of my lifestyle and the things that I'm doing. I don't have time to prep food. If I don't eat properly, I'm going to be eating at McDonald's or some crap like that. So it was a really good concept and a really good idea for me. Signed up for him. Over the 6 months, I've lost 37 pounds. Feel great. Everything's awesome. He calls me at the middle of February and says, hey, man, I'm shutting it down. And I'm like, well, I've got 10 more pounds to go. Like, why? He's like, well, the food cost and the gas cost, blah, 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 blah. And I go, but wait, there's got to be a way, right? Like, how can we figure this out? I also know a guy that started a company that is effectively a online grocery store. And I was like, I got to call this guy and figure this out. I call him and I go, this guy's complaining of food costs and all this other things. Here's his business model. How can we connect some people together to make this happen? Long story short, a meeting happens, another meeting happens. I'm in a couple of these meetings, and he's building a business off the back of this other online business that has this online ordering system and this online fresh food system that he was never able to build before. And I'm making 25 cents a meal. Now, it sounds stupid, but
no, it does not sound
meal.
stupid. That does not sound stupid to people like that have the hamster wheel turning and are listening, because especially as that scales, that could be quite significant.
Well, and that's kind of like your industry, right? Where, you know, your percentages in your credit card processing and such like that. I mean, there are small percentages and there's small amounts, but over the course of lots of transactions, it makes a difference. It's that whole adage of, you know, I think we still hear the story of how Ray Kroc's wife still makes like a penny on every Big Mac that gets sold, and she makes millions of dollars a year.
I did not know that, actually. That's fascinating to me.
It may not be true, but I've heard that so many times over the course of my life because of this whole, you know, sort of the idea of passive income. But yeah, so I mean, like, it's the same idea. So all I did was connect a couple people. I'm not going to be in charge of cooking the food or making the food or delivering the food or any of that crap. I don't want it. I don't have time for it. But because of that connection, that was able to take this other guy to the next stratosphere, they're paying me for that privilege. And I'm not saying you have to be greedy about it. There's scenarios where I probably wouldn't jump in and ask for money. But in this case, because there's a business that we helped organize and put together, I'm like, yeah, I'll take my little piece. That's fine.
That's interesting. You know, one of the things like, so naturally I'm quite an introverted person. And so I have never been great at conferences, or maybe more traditional ways, like the Chamber of Commerce type thing. I've never been good at that, I'm certain to my own detriment. And so I feel that even though I do work with, you know, many people, just because I've been doing this so long now, but I wonder if you're an introverted person, if it's a little bit harder to go out and build that network and steps that you could take to help accomplish it. I'm just thinking of myself, to be honest. I'm being very selfish in my thought process here, but
So a couple of thoughts on that. Like when language like I'm not good at that comes out, I often fall back to, well, I wasn't good at baseball when I was 5 years old either. And eventually I became good at it, and I started to really grow and practice and get better at it. So I think it's about taking small steps to move in the right direction and look at yourself and go, okay, I'm not good at making those connections in like a big group setting. So maybe I'm going to go and invite someone out for lunch, and it's one-on-one, and it's just a very simple, now we can go out for lunch, which is nice. And we can go and sit and just have a chat or a coffee or whatever. Start small and build that up, because eventually you'll get good at it. A lot of my marketing revolves around video. I sit on video all the time. When I get off here, I got to do a couple of videos for my content. And we were talking about it in a team meeting yesterday, how when I started, I was terrible, right? Like on video number 1, I was terrible. And I was comparing myself to other people that were on video number 100. Right?
It's like, why am I not Tony Robbins yet? I've already done one video.
Exactly. But that's stupid. And I think that's where people get a little hung up. They go, oh, well, I'm not good at it. And they see this guy sitting over here going and schmoozing everybody and think that that's the way you have to be. I'll tell you right now, the guy that's walking around the room schmoozing everybody, people are probably talking behind his back and going, you know, there's a certain level of respect and way
like
that you got to go about doing
to it.
things. Right. I was at a conference last year or 2 years ago where a guy was just walking around handing out business cards as if that was the way to do things. I don't know who that guy is anymore. I don't know where he is. I don't know. I don't have his business card. I couldn't care less.
Right.
Now, if he took the time to actually make a connection with me and maybe corner me at somewhere when I was standing at the back and say, hey, man, how's it going? And have a conversation, then I might be a little more impressed with the guy. But because he was just walking around handing out cards, like as if that's supposed to work, that's just not the way it works. But the point is that you have to take small steps to get to bigger goals. You begin with the end in mind, and you say, okay, listen, by the end of the year, I'd like to have a list of 25 people that I'm connected with that do whatever. I don't know. And then you work your way towards that, and you start with one, and then eventually it becomes, well, how can I get as many people in a room as possible to connect with them? Right. So I'm going to be a part of a conference next month, or at the end of this month, where there's going to be 1,000 realtors in a room. And to me, that's like, I'm going to be on stage for that. And I'm like, okay, a little bit a little bit of heart palpitations going on, but the reality is that's my bread. Like, I love that. And it actually takes like me going one-on-one and going, screw that. I'm going to go big and talk to everybody in the room. And to me, that's like but you get there eventually, but I think it's just start small and work your way up.
It's a process. So that's kind of like
Totally
the concept of the importance of continually developing and continually learning, because if you just do what you know, you've kind of painted yourself right into a corner, haven't you?
Your growth is going to be in your uncomfortability. That's where you're going to grow the most, right? So if you sit and just do the same things over and over again and expect a different result, I mean, isn't that the definition of insanity, first of all?
I think
so. But, some people may hit it off and something goes great, but unless you're actually going to step out of your comfort zone and do something interesting and different and exciting, you probably won't do much more than you're already doing now. Simple as that. It's a tough pill to swallow for some people because they're like, but I'm working so hard. But it's like, well, what are your results, right? And how do they track? Do they make a difference every year, or are they just gradually increasing? Are you looking for that massive increase, but that's not coming and you're wondering why, right? So it's all about like metrics and figuring out the results and looking for the future, but also using the past to grow and see. There's a whole bunch of other elements, but I think the bottom line is, in order for something big to happen, you got to start with doing something big to begin with.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense to me. And so if you have a business and you're working really hard and you're not getting anywhere, and basically like you're either suffering, if your business is really suffering, most likely your personal life is really suffering, unless you're like have Buddhist monk level of stress management, but so I saw a talk recently and it was interesting. And the speaker said that suffering and pain are the incentives for change, because if we weren't hurting, then why would we want to change? And it was a really interesting thought that could be applied to so many things, business included, I think.
As humans, we are conditioned to avoid pain and suffering. That's how we live our lives, more so than ever, because we live in this cushy world. Listen, within reason. I mean, obviously in certain parts of the world it's not, but as a whole in North America, we are in very cushy surroundings. We have a lot of things that we can surround ourselves with to make us feel good. And we avoid pain and awkwardness and suffering because it's in our nature and it's in our DNA to do so. And the unfortunate part is a lot of times in that scared, fear, painful moment is when you're going to do the most growing in personally and in a lot of times financially. Mm-hmm. One of the things, just to sort of skip back to the conversation about the guy who's got the food business, one of the things that stopped him originally 2 years ago from growing it massively was the fear and the pain of having to put more money out and having to go to the next level. He hit a ceiling where he needed more money and more things in order to grow. It would have been, for a short period of time, a step backwards in income because it would have been more expenses and various different things. But ultimately, he would have been able to leverage through that as he went along and get to the next level, which would have been full circle back around to more income and more growth and more leverage and so on and so forth. The problem is a lot of people get stuck in their businesses in that first small pain point where it's like, holy crap, I need an assistant. In real estate, usually your first hire is going to be an assistant. Well, that's going to cost me $40,000, $50,000 a year. I can't afford that. But can you afford not to have that if you want your business to grow? Right. So that'll hurt you short term, but long term it'll create way more for you. I just got off a call with a virtual assistant lady who's trying to sell me on her services, and she's like, how much? Like, for virtual assistants in the Philippines are amazing. For $800 a month, I get 80 hours. And her whole pitch is, well, how can I get your wife to spend more time with your family? And I'm like, that is the perfect pitch for me.
Oh, wow. She got you all figured out. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. She's like, I'm like, for $800 a month, my wife can go spend more time with our family. Simple as that. Cause she works in my business and that will alleviate some of the pressure and pain of the things she does. So, but there are a lot of people that would go, but $800. But I'm going, well, if I were to hire someone in that position, it's going to cost me probably $1,500 a month at least. And they're going to be, someone else has to, like, I have to train these people with the VA, someone else trains them. It's a whole set of things. So it's all about going through those painful moments making decisions, and it's not just like physical pain. It's like literally like in your pocketbook could be pain, but it's making decisions based on those individual moments as they come along to decide whether or not there's value on the other end of them.
So this is only I think the 5th episode of the Vlogcast. What I'm finding so interesting about doing them is it's pointing out all my own flaws or characteristics, whatever, kindness, if I want to be kind to myself. But people are, okay, let's go to the furthest end of the curve, like the Vegas degenerate gambler who, those guys that are like either broke or millionaires, and
Yes.
it's like the constant. And then at the other end of the spectrum is like someone who, would never even go to Las Vegas. And there's these different, this is the human psyche and personality of it. And so my nature is I'm very conservative by nature. Like I'm not big into leverage and all that stuff. So these are the types of points where I have to acknowledge and challenge my own limitations. Like one of the things that I'm thinking of is like, I can only learn so much. I'm not a genius. Okay, I'm competent, but I know that businesses can fail when they get to a certain level, and then they don't know how to get further. I think this is actually why a lot of high tech, like flying companies, like flying to the moon with 5,000 times valuations. At some point, the brilliant eccentric founder gets kicked out the door and they bring in somebody that actually knows how to run a business because, you don't have everything. You might be a visionary, but maybe you're not like a phase 2 type person. I mean, I'm thinking that's probably a thing.
It's 100% a thing. And I'll tell you right now, so just to kind of circle back to my real estate company, in March of 2020, I'm really open about this story. You Google me and look at some of the stuff I've done. I have no issue talking about it. So I'll bring it up here and just sort of hopefully bring some inspiration to some people. But in March of 2020, I had $24 in my bank account and I signed up for a $50,000 American training program, a coaching program. And it was one of those moments in my life where we had got to a point where I was on my own with my own little team, doing my own thing. My wife and I were discussing going to this conference, and we went there. The previous year, I'd done about $150,000 in commission sales for my team, which was between 3 people is nothing for real estate. And I was sitting in this conference thinking to myself, I need a change. I need to put my ego aside and realize that I don't know everything. Even though I thought I did after, 14 odd years in the business and having parents that were 40 odd years in the business, I don't know everything. I don't know how there's more to real estate. And I think that's one of the challenges in real estate in and of itself is people think they can just get in and sell real estate and they treat it like a hobby, but they're not treating it like a business. Right. And so I was able to leverage those people in that coaching program to be able to build systems and models and mindset around the things that were the most important in order for me to grow. And I was able to take my business from $150,000 in 2019, the second half of 2020, which we had done not much in the first half. We ended up at $650,000. We were nearly at $1 million last year, and we're over $400,000 this year in the first 2 months of the year. So we're doing pretty good. But my point is that $24 in my bank account, I took a flyer to say I'm going to spend 50 grand. And that's a crazy, like, Vegas gambling kind of mindset. Like, this is my last $24 in the slot machine. Bing, bing. Like, that kind of thing.
But it is different, Justin, because yours was a very targeted investment in yourself as opposed to a dice roll.
100%. I get it. But the thought process for a lot of people will be, wow, how could you have spent that much money knowing that's all you had? Right? That's the conservative mindset. Right. So now we're pushing that boundary, that scale of like from 0 to crazy gambler guy is like way over the 50% boundary to kind of go, okay, like I'm willing to put this money out there. But the question is like, what are we going to do? Right. How coachable are we going to be? And I was talking to my coach yesterday and she said she had concerns about me because I'd been in the business 14 years. I had parents in it. She didn't think I was going to be coachable. And Andy and I, my wife and I said, if we're going to do this, everything goes to the side and we just do everything they say. And that's all we did. We did everything they said. We had our moments of like, holy crap, like moments of scarcity where it was like, oh man, is this the right thing? Are we doing the right thing here? But it paid off because we stuck to it. And I think that's where we have to really understand that. Like I look at things like that expanded my mind into like, well, that's why I have a nutritionist. I thought I knew how to lose weight, but I wasn't. Like, I was 257 pounds at 6 feet and not like linebacker muscle. Like I'm talking like pear-shaped muscle.
Right. Yeah.
And I was not happy. I was walking up the stairs getting out of breath going, yeah, I'll be fine. I'll figure this out. I can eat whatever I want as long as the calories and blah, 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 it was fine. No, that's not how it works. I was gaining and gaining. So I found this guy and I said, I need your help. Right. We were having problems with money and how we handled our money. And I thought I knew how to invest. I don't know how to invest. So I hired a money manager.
You know what I'm hearing? And it's like it's hard to admit to yourself that you don't know. Because nobody wants to admit that to themselves. It's difficult. That's right. It's hard on your ego.
That's the hardest part, your ego. Get over your ego first, and then you can make those decisions. Ego, then money, because it's like, well, hey, your money manager is making money off you. Yeah, so when people hire me as a realtor, they make money off me. They don't have to. They could sell privately. But, they don't know or don't know how to maximize their opportunity. So that's what my money manager guy does, my wealth advisor or whatever we want to call him. He's amazing. Mm-hmm. He costs me money, but guess what? He's made me a crap ton of money, too, in the last 2 years, right? Tax shelters, all kinds of things, right? Which, again, I never knew about, but I thought I knew. But I also don't maintain my own car. Like, it's like, so if I'm going to go take my car to a mechanic, why am I thinking that I can manage my own money and all these other things in my world? There's just too many of them. It sounds really arrogant. I don't even press my own shirts because the ROI on that isn't valuable to me. Right? Does that make sense?
Of course it does. It's about knowing your limitations. It's like knowing, listen, next time you want your car fixed, I can work on it, but it'll never run again. That's my limitation.
Yeah, so, exactly.
So it's like finding, first of all, it's valuing your own time. Because like not even if you were to hire me to build a deck for you, first of all, that deck better be no more than 6 inches off the ground and no more than one person better ever stand on it, right? Like I'm not good at that. But that's not an attack on me because I have value and expertise in other areas. And so I think that's why, so I learned this recently. I have a client with a pharmaceutical business. And well, actually they're a prospective client. They're not a client yet. And so there's different laws about selling pharmaceuticals online. So they're a retail brick and mortar pharmacy in BC. And they service people in BC and then across Canada and then in the US. And every one of those three things are very, very different from a regulatory perspective, something of which I can guarantee I'm not an expert. And so they went out and got a legal opinion to try and so that I could take it to the underwriter to get their merchant account approved. And the legal opinion was really weak. And of course they didn't go ahead, the processor wouldn't onboard the account. And I thought about it for a good long time. And I went back to that client a couple of weeks later and I said, look, I don't want you to give up. What I think you need to do is don't just call a lawyer that you know. Don't go with someone convenient. Either do some research or let me do some research. And they said, well, this is important to us, but if you think you can connect me, do it. So what I did is I went on LinkedIn and I used a very specific set of keywords to look for an extraordinary niche legal expertise, which is basically pharmaceutical law across countries. Like that's not something there's going to be a lineup of people down the street to do. But I found somebody in Toronto with a small practice that came from a really large practice and then broke out on his own. And I called him and I talked to him about exactly the problem. He said, yeah, Dave, and I have a colleague in the US that I used to work with. We can cover this on both sides and we will give you an airtight legal opinion. And it's like this thing that I've seen, a lesson that I've learned over and over again. When you have a complicated problem, getting the right expertise, and something else I've learned too, a lot of people will say they're experts, and this is not to attack anyone, but to really be it's one thing to say, hey, I'm an expert on this, I'm an expert on that. You can be competent at it, but a real expert, well, there's a reason that's rare. So it's almost like spending as much time as is necessary, more than maybe you'd think, to really find a real expert that solved this complicated problem that you're trying to solve. They've solved it already and they have all the knowledge. And I'm guessing you've probably run into situations like that as well, where you go and get the right people for the right job.
Yeah, and I think you said it earlier. You said you don't know everything, right? Mm-hmm. And nobody can know everything. And I like to call it zone of genius. Nobody has massive amounts of genius. There are some people, but Very few people. And I look at it like my zone of genius is conversation and sales and talking to people and those things. Business building, I'd rather have other people around me that are good at that stuff that can send me in the right direction. And that's why we did what we did. I mean, we've done it in multiple like we talked about, we have other businesses. I have another business. I brought in 3 other people as ownership on the ownership team that have different zones of genius within the business world to be able to build this company. Right. And I've done it strategically because me on my own, I could sit there and try to hammer away at it, but how good is that going to be over the next 2 years versus having 4 people that know what the hell they're doing in different areas to be able to grow? Simple as that. And until you get out of your own way, and that's a big problem in real estate, I find in this coaching program I'm in, the biggest problem these people have is they're like, I just want to do everything, and I think that I can do it the best all the time. And you're flat out wrong. You're flat out wrong. You could probably do it pretty good, and maybe you are the best at it. Doesn't mean that other people can't do it, and doesn't mean that your ROI, your time ROI, is better spent elsewhere.
Or you might be the best at 1 or 2 components of it, but you really, unless you're some sort of god among mortals, you're not going to be the best at everything. And
it's not possible.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now, I'm actually thinking about, but I'm going to flip it a little bit and talk about the self. Like, because we do also learn, and we do have the ability to prove and to improve ourselves. And one of the things that I like to consider that I think is helpful to me is my own failures about failures. I've had some failures. I once did a website selling ultra modern leather furniture, and it was really nice stuff. Like, it was custom, Italian made. We would deliver it to the condo, we'd take or apartment, wherever you lived. We'd remove the old stuff, like white glove installation. The prices were better than anywhere else. Like, I covered everything in an absolute money back guarantee. If you get this furniture for 1 month, we'll take it back out and we won't charge you anything. And I made exactly, drum roll, 0 sales. And I ran that thing for about a year. And that, like, it was, to this day, I still don't know exactly why it failed, other than the fact that no customers. That's a hint. But, I'm curious, Justin, have you ever been involved in a project where you were genuinely surprised something failed? And if so, did you take away anything or manage to learn anything from it?
Well, luckily, I've not been in many failed projects. I would say that my real estate team was a failure for a while, but I was able to course correct and turn it into what we've turned it into now. So I had 2 years of just like miserable BS, and then course corrected into what we've got today. I did an investment in a company a few years back, which I don't like to talk about because I often say if the investment hit big, everyone would know about it, and I'd be like, hey, look what I did. If it didn't hit at all and it all went away, I'd be like, no one would ever hear me talk about it again. But I'll talk about it here because it was a bit of a thing. But basically, like I walked into this guy's office, and he pitched me on the golf course originally, and then I went to his office and we did another meeting, and we talked a lot about this company that had a lot of potential and had a lot of promise. And I just blindly kind of said, yeah, here's a check, like, have a nice day. A very gregarious gentleman, and easy to talk to and easy to kind of get caught up in the message and the story. And that, to this day, I mean, they still post on Twitter like as if they're still doing stuff, but it's just like it's 7 years later, and I'm thinking this ain't coming back to me. So, and I haven't seen a penny. So that's about the biggest failure I've ever had. But what did I learn from that was like, everything you get yourself into, before you head into it, don't just trust the people that are standing there in front of you telling you about it. Do your research, trust your gut too sometimes. That's a big one because sometimes your gut is right. And in that case, there was a wonky feeling, but, the money on the back end really swayed me, where he was like, if you invest this, you'll make this. And I was like, wow, that's a lot of money from a small investment. Long story short, research and time to really digest. I had a pitch meeting the other day with another company that's asking me for money just as an investment, like a capital investment in this privately held company. And, I listened, and it sounded wonderful, and it was beautiful on this call that I was on. But I was like, yeah, thanks guys. I'm going to take all the info and I'm going to really dig into it and figure it out before I spend any money on this. And I think that applies to almost anything you do. You know, I'm about to hire this VA. I'm going to check into them and make sure everything's kosher with them and that their you know, their testimonials are real and true and so on and so forth. It takes time to do these things, but preparing yourself that way and doing the sort of the research and the back end work before you jump headlong sometimes can save you thousands and thousands of dollars in the long run.
Oh, of course it can. I mean, you know how you can never fail by never doing anything. That's not a good approach. So I think it's more about, you know, you're managing your risk. You're being prudent. Like and failures can be really small. You know, by the way, it could be like, hey, you know, like, okay, something at merchantaccounts.ca that I have never done is outbound sales. We've always been inbound. But a lot of merchant services businesses do an outbound, you know, some outbound sales efforts. Of course, you know, in fairness, unfortunately, the payments industry, some companies are really great. Some companies are a little bit sleazy, if I don't know a softer word to use. And that outbound hard sale is something that I never really wanted to get into. But I am thinking about trying to go about it in a really ethical way, like very targeted niches, and hire a salesperson just to like really reach out on an individual basis. And if it doesn't, if it doesn't work, you know, I'll keep my eye on it. And it's not like I'm going to hire 300 people in a call center. It's like, see if it works and manage the risk, you know, as opposed to just jumping all in on something.
So let's flip the script on it a little bit and kind of look at it like, okay, well, what could you be doing other than just calling if you think that calling is uncomfortable and that it creates a sleaziness in your industry? I look at marketing in a different way. If you think anybody listening to this right now, or if you watching this right now, close your eyes and think about a realtor you know in your area and sort of go back to some of the Facebook and marketing they've done on their social medias, and it's probably all the same crap. Just solds, just listeds. I'm so excited about my client's journey, you know, that kind of stuff. And to me, none of that works because it's not bringing value to anything that anybody does. To me, based on my experiences with you, your value is you because you are the person that has brought immense value to the transaction that we're working towards or the business that we're working towards. And so to me, you want people to know about that. And the only way that message is going to get across in an effective way is probably through some sort of marketing program. And if you're going to do it like some sort of targeted marketing program, there are ways to do it that could theoretically be online, through LinkedIn, B2B, through Facebook in ways that you don't understand because, you know what, a lot of people that use your product are humans, even though they're, you know, LinkedIn is for business and you're B2B, there's still humans behind that. Right. So, and humans are on Facebook. Most humans, a lot of humans are on Facebook. And so there's ways to create marketing and targeted marketing around those things that are not sleazy, but they tell a story. And it's not just your typical in-your-face marketing program. Here's my rates. You know, that kind of crap does not work. What I need to know is, or what you need to know is, what is the pain point of my clients that I best serve and remove? And how can I get that out there to those people? Because there's no, like, if you try to market to everybody, and like cold calling, for example, is a form of marketing to everybody, which is basically blanketing a list of people over a wide berth. You're going to get people that you don't even want to work with.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. It's about, you know how I've always said it. You talked about pain points. I always say it like, what's the problem that people have that I can solve, that I can really genuinely help solve? And probably building, you know, some sort of efforts, I don't know, marketing efforts around that.
So here's what I found, okay? So I tried with another company to get approved, and the process was clunky and not very informative and not very helpful, right? Whereas the process that you and I have gone through I've stalled the process more than anything because of the way things have gone in my company trying to get to the end result. But the point is that the process that you and I have gone through has been dramatically different than that original process. And I'll tell you right now, that original process was a friend who was giving me some sort of discount. I don't even really know or understand the discounts in your industry. It is what it is. But it was a friend who I was trusting to give me the right advice and the right stuff. And it turns out that guy, his customer service and the things that he brings to the table didn't really get me to the end goal, and I was nowhere further forward. after having gone through everything I went through with him. Fast forward to starting a relationship with you, and notwithstanding the time in between our last conversation and today, which we've revived this conversation to get finalized, and we'll have something done. The time you've spent with me, and it's much shorter than the time I spent with that guy, has been far more fruitful for me to understand the industry more than I've ever understood it before.
Oh,
right.
good.
And understand what I need in order to get approved and get moving forward with this new company than I ever had before. Like, I had conversations where people were making me feel like crap. Like, we had I don't even remember the name of the company, but a service provider in your industry on the phone with me, their management team, trying to talk with me and tell me how stupid I am for doing what I'm doing. And I'm like, what are you talking? Like, why are you doing this to me? I'm trying to spend money. I'm trying to make you guys money by using your services, and you're basically treating me like crap. And that has not happened once in this conversation. And that, to me, is a superpower that you need to get out there. Your advice, the things that you bring to the table, and the knowledge that you have in this industry to help people get what they need is a massive step forward from some of the things I've seen in the past.
I really appreciate that, Justin. I'm finding that one of the benefits of doing these vlogcasts is I'm getting so much good advice from people just talking to them, and you're making me feel good about myself. Thank you. But
that's good. That's always a positive.
That's awesome. You know what? Then let's talk about your project, if you don't mind, because I'm sure the viewers, if you're okay with it, maybe tell folks about the project that you're launching, because I think it sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah, so we're launching a company called Listing Loans. It's a Canadian-based company for now, so if you're in the U.S., I'm sorry, but we can't service you yet, but we will eventually. We are in Ontario at the moment and looking to expand. The idea behind it is we're selling directly to realtors a tool with which they can actually provide their clients, their sellers, and their buyers money in order to allow them to renovate and update their homes. But this is a deeper level product than just that. So yeah, okay, as a realtor, I can walk into a seller's house and say, okay, great, I'm going to get you a cash advance of $10,000 and we're going to do this, this, and this, and that's great. But at the end of the day, what's more important in what we're doing is I kind of got sick of this industry chasing ourselves to the bottom of the barrel when it came to commission. I mean, we deserve every... Oh, it's awful, right? Like, I mean, I had a conversation with a lady today who was like, well, if you were my friend, I'd be charging you 0.5%. And I'm like, we're not friends. Sorry. Like, yeah, I don't do that. And even with my friends, they want me to give them the best service, so they're going to pay me the money I ask. Anyway, but the point is we're constantly doing that. I've lost a couple listings in the last 6 months because someone else charged less. And so then when we try to bring value as realtors, we end up throwing more stuff at listings. So we're looking at it going, okay, well, I'll pay for painting. I'll pay for staging. I'll pay for you to go to a hotel for the weekend while it lists and I have to have you out of the house, and people are going through. I'll pay for this. I'll pay for dog walkers and babysitters and everything in between. And then I'm like, well, okay, let's say I have 3 or 4 listings and I've paid $10,000. Now I've got $30,000, $40,000 sitting out there. And there's no guarantee that any of that's going to sell or come back to me, because if those people decide to not sell with me or blame me for it not selling, I'm done. That money could be gone, or how could they, if they couldn't afford it in the first place to pay it, how are they going to pay me now? Right. So there's a lot of risk involved in that. And then the last thing is I also look at opportunity to make more money in these deals. And it sounds bad, but it's, everyone's always trying to squeeze profit out of these deals. And so I look at opportunity to bring more value, which ultimately allows me to actually make more money. And this is what we're doing with this product. So I'm teaching agents, I'm going through the process of educating agents to be able to use someone else's money, which is the most important part, to be able to transact a real estate deal and get a house sold for the most money possible, while still being able to keep their money in their pocket, and then at the back end make more money than they were previously making with just a bare basic commission rates. And then, no more cutting commission. I hate this cutting commission garbage happening all the time right now. So, does that make sense? I hope that makes sense.
It does. And because I've worked with you, I know a part of it, and this is interesting to me. A part of it is a financing element for the homeowner, because some of these folks, like you said, Listen, I know that, okay, I'm not a realtor guy, but I know kitchens, there's certain areas that you want to spend money that tend to recoup it. And so if you have I bought a house one time in Burlington, and it was built by a crazy artist, and I mean a literally crazy artist. It was very interesting. But I'll put it this way. You did not want to cook food in that oven. You did not want to put food in that fridge. And so doing the kitchen, if I didn't have the money, you would need money to do that. And that's a part of this project, right? There's a financing element for it.
Yep. Yeah, the idea is that an agent will come to your house and say, listen, we've got to do all these things in order to get it ready for sale. So my pitch to people is this. I've got 3 commission levels. Okay. Commission level 1 is, and just for bare bottom, and I'm using a generalized commission structure, but bare bottom is 2% because it could be 3 or 4 depending on the location you're in, but bare bottom is 2%. And with 2%, you're going to get photos, video, all the good stuff that I normally do, all done. You got to get the house ready. I'll even throw in a staging consult, which costs a couple $100, $300, something like that. And all of that's in the 2% level. You go to 2.5% for me, I'll get you a $10,000 cash advance that will allow you to spend that $10,000. It's free money for 6 months. You don't have to pay any interest on it for 6 months. Mm-hmm. And it's not like the interest is accrued when you pay it. It's just literally if you take $10,000, you pay back $10,000 within the 6 months. Mm-hmm. And that money then, with that money, you can spend it on staging, or if you have to do painting or whatever you need to do, you can go from there. I can get you up to 25 grand if need be, but 10,000 is what's included in the 2.5 amount.
Okay.
Or I can go to 3%. And at 3%, I'll get you a $25,000 cash advance. And with that cash advance, I'm going to mobilize my entire team where we're going to organize your pod, which will help you with your moving because you'll put all your stuff in your pod. We're going to mobilize the stager. We're going to mobilize the painter. We're going to mobilize the cleaners, the carpet cleaners, the construction guys that need to come in and fix the door handles and hinges and toilets and things that need to get fixed. We are going to handle all of that. You are not going to lift a finger. All you're going to do is write a check because that 25 grand is now in your account. When these people need to get paid, you're going to pay out these people. And the best part about that deal is I'm going to rebate you 50% of the money that you spend at the back end on my commission. So in the end, what ends up happening is that you might only spend $5,000 or $7,000 or $10,000 more than the 2% commission rate, but you're getting value of $25,000 more out of that. So for me as a realtor, individually, I'm making $5,000, $7,000, $10,000 more than what I was willing to accept at 2% with no other bells and whistles. The house is going to sell for more money because it's going to look better and present better just by default because of the stuff we're going to do to it. Mm-hmm. And we're going to make more money across the board as a whole. The homeowner is going to make more money. I'm going to make more money on my commission percentage, and I'll make a few extra bucks on the rebate scenario at the back end where I only rebate them half and they end up paying for the other half of it. So it's a win-win for everybody, and it brings a massive amount of value. We just finished a hoarder house in Georgetown, Ontario, that literally the guy had been in 2016. His wife passed away. God bless him. It was terrible. It was very sad. And he had just built up this amount of stuff in his house because he was in this mental state and it didn't make sense. He for 2 years, he's been trying to clean it. He's had bins on his driveway and done nothing. In 10 days, we got him a cash advance of $25,000. And in 10 days, my team organized the entire set of things to have pods, to have declutterers come in and pull out all the stuff. Within 3 days, all the hoarding stuff was out of the house. The house was completely clear. Then it was floor cleaning. Then it was painting. Then it was staging and cleaning. And in 10 days, we were completely ready to go. Got him on MLS and actually got him one of the highest values in the neighborhood. I'm not going to splash that, we sold over asking, because we did, but that was on purpose. We set it up that way. But we got one of the highest values in the neighborhood because we leveraged the power of that 25 grand. Now, I could have said, I'll write you a check for 25 grand and pay for all that. But what is the risk in that if it doesn't sell? Because he was very emotionally unstable as a whole through the whole process. And it was very difficult to get to the end. And what if he suddenly decides, I'm not selling my house?
Right. Then as the realtor, you're on the hook for that. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So we've now created a scenario where it all gets dealt with on the back end. There's rebates and things that we deal with, and everybody wins. Everybody wins, and I'm providing massive value, and that guy is raving about me now because he's like, I can't believe what these guys did in 10 days.
No,
and
that's
actually,
really
by the time
good.
it was 12 days, we sold it.
That's fascinating. You know, one of the things that's really interesting because first of all, I've changed as I've matured or gotten older, whatever. But so I used to have an employee who was very, very frugal. That was his personal nature. And when he would do quotes, he would always undercut everything. You know what I mean? And
Right.
and he didn't value his time. Now, when you're telling me about like for an extra 0.5%, I'm going to deal with, and you just went, brrr, it was like a laundry list of stuff. It's like 0.5%. Like I have another friend who doesn't want to deal with anything ever. And he's a business owner. He's a very successful guy. And it's like, the value of your own time, coming back to what you said with your wife and the assistant you may be hiring from the Philippines, it's like valuing your own time is worth so much. You can't, but not everybody sees that way. I guess that's why you have the 2% commission tier. But people that understand value should be all over that, because at least in some circumstances, because holy moly, I don't want to clean a hoarder house. I want the thing sold and I want the deposit, and I'll just go somewhere clean. Thank you. You know, anyways, that's how my thought process works.
Understandable, completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the point, though, is because if some other agent had walked in there and said, list it the way it is, what would that result have been? Right? And you know, a couple of things that this does. One, if I'm a small agent just starting out, I can use this tool to compete with the big agents that have the money to be able to do this on their own anyway. It's like my target market is not these big agents that are spending that kind of money anyway. If they want to come to me and be a part of our thing and use our money to be able to help create their wealth and their thing in their company, that's fine. But generally speaking, we're the medium to small agent target market because we look at that as the opportunity for guys just starting out and gals just starting out like me that kind of came from nothing, that can't compete with someone else bringing value in that regard. Now they can, right? They couldn't do that before. They didn't have access to it. There are some companies individually that do it. I think, Properly is a real estate company that actually has this built-in thing where you can get 20 or 25 grand out of them to be able to do some renovations on your home. But that's that company. If you don't work for them, you don't have access to those funds. Right? We are not like a payday loan company. We haven't built this around kind of quick money and high expenses and stuff. It's cheap money. It's quick money in order for it to happen fast so we can get things done quickly. And the homeowner really is the one that benefits the most because ultimately they put money into their house in valuable ways that you control as the realtor, the process, and help them through that process in order for them to actually end up making more money in the end. There's no downside to anybody for this because this money can be used to help everybody make more money is really the bottom line. And that's my biggest hurdle actually to get over because people don't think like this. They think of it like a loan and they think of it like, you know, I can go to some of these quick loan companies. We hear the commercial on the radio all the time. Mortgage. You know, you can get these loans. That's not what this is. It's not designed that way. It's not a super high interest rate product. It's a product that allows people to take advantage of an opportunity that is coming. They have to sell their house, and now we can leverage that into success all around for them. And yeah, we make money off it because it's a loan. We're giving you our money, and we want to make money. But it's not like we're gouging. We're not looking for that. We're looking for an amenable solution for everybody to win. That's the point.
It's a mutual.
We'll come from a place of contribution.
Win. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the website going to be in case people, I don't think it's launched yet, but tell people in case they're watching and they want to jot it down.
The website is www.listingloans.ca. And pretty straightforward. You can go there and book a call with me directly on one of the links on there. And I'm happy to, if you're a realtor and you want to get involved, by all means. If you're in the general public and you're not a real estate salesperson, we don't sell to the public. That's part of the catch. Like, we will not sell to you, but call your realtor if you're about to list your home and say, hey, we want to be a part of this product, and your realtor can call me directly and we can actually have a meeting and set it all up and get it done. We can have funds transferred within 24 hours of most people's conversation. So it's a pretty quick thing and simple, easy, online. We were talking about online business before. It's all done online. Nobody has to be in person. All gets transferred. Everything's good.
Justin, you've been super kind with your time here today, and I think we're pushing up against our hour. But before we wrap it up, I always ask this question. And usually I say, what secret advice would you share to e-commerce merchants? And I know that you are launching this online business, you have other projects, but because you have such an interesting expertise, I'm going to qualify. It doesn't have to be e-commerce. What secret advice would you share to any business owner? This is a carte blanche thing. I know you weren't prepared for this question.
No, I'm totally prepared for this question.
Are you? Okay, well, now I'm listening. I want to hear. Okay.
Yeah. I read a book called Be Obsessed or Be Average probably 3 years ago. That was by Grant Cardone. Anybody that knows sales knows that Grant Cardone is big in the sales industry, and he wrote that book. I would highly suggest you go listen to that book. I say listen because he tells the story rather than reading it, because when he tells it on the audio, it's just different. It hits different.
Okay.
The message of that book that struck me, that really shifted my mindset, was the idea that everything that happens to me happens because of me. I am in the position that I'm in today because of me. Blaming other people for my misfortune and my misgivings is not going to serve me and get me moving forward in the right direction. I have to take responsibility for my own stuff. And I say stuff because I don't want to swear on your podcast. And the reality becomes that, like, you could even look at it like, he uses one of the examples in the book, like you work from home. You're talking about e-commerce business, right? You work from home. A lot of you folks that are in e-commerce, right? You have home offices and things. The reality becomes, if your power goes out in your house, whose fault is that? Is it the city's fault? Well, maybe, but why didn't you set yourself up properly because you have an e-commerce business that you have a generator out the back of your house so that when your power goes out, your business never stops, right? The things that you're doing and the connections that you need to have within your home never stop. That's your fault for not having that backup set up.
That's right. You're talking about being accountable to yourself for your decisions. Being
accountable to yourself, right down to the minutia of, why didn't you leave 5 minutes earlier if you got in that car accident? Why didn't you leave? There's a bunch of different psychological mindset things that are involved in that. And yeah, breaking it down to the minutia can be incredibly stupid sometimes. But I think if you take away the victim mentality from your world and stop blaming other people for the stuff that's happening to you and take responsibility for all of it, your world will change. And the funniest part about it is you'll start seeing other people around you blaming other people for stuff that's not other people's fault. And you'll look at them and you'll go, that's just embarrassing that they're even bitching about that. And you'll feel awkward about their stupidity, right? And it's funny because I've seen the transition in my own mind with people around me. So stop blaming other people. Stop being a victim. Take control of your own situation, no matter where you're at, what you're in, what business you're in. It doesn't matter. You want more, go get more, and it's up to you. If it's gonna be, it's up to me. That's what someone told me one time. And there you go. So that's my secret advice for you.
Secret advice, and I'll tell you, even if you're listening to this vlogcast and you don't have a business, apply it in your life. You probably attach that to relationships, you just write the whole list. That sounds like you can apply that to pretty much every situation, or virtually every situation. Justin, that was absolutely awesome. And I have really enjoyed this conversation. I'd love if you could tell our viewers where they could find you in case they wanted to talk to you about some real estate or your other projects. Sure. Where could they get you? Because
of my marketing and my social media, I am completely wide open all over the interweb. So you can just Google Justin Loncaric, Loncaric is my last name. And my Facebook will probably pop up. You can text me right through Facebook and I answer all those. It's a wide open profile because that's how I market. It's what I do. I use Facebook as a tool. And so that anybody in the general public can go look and find me there.
Awesome. Justin, thanks so much. This was really great and I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Okay.